Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the USA Today for Wednesday, March 11th, 2026. Your reader for this hour is Mary Gilmore. We're going to start with American athlete hopes for miracle. Imprisoned in Indonesia, he's sick and seeks help. As the hours tick by, former college basketball player Jared Shaw wonders daily whether his life has come down to this bleak existence and whether he'll ever see his home more than 10,000 miles away. Jammed into a room no bigger than a typical New York City studio apartment with 11 other men, Shaw is far removed from the familiarity of the camaraderie of the locker room filled with teammates focused on winning a basketball game. Shaw, who was convicted of a drug offense, is one of approximately 276,000 people imprisoned in Indonesia. He is attempting to return to the United States as his medical condition deteriorates. Shaw has Crohn's disease, an inflammatory bowel disease that, according to the Mayo Clinic, causes swelling and irritation of the tissues in the digestive tract. It can lead to pain, severe diarrhea, fatigue, weight loss, and malnutrition. Shaw, now 35, has already lost 40 pounds from his playing weight of 245 pounds on a 6-foot, 10-inch frame, and the risk of colorectal cancer is high with people with Crohn's disease. I can wake up any moment and be hospitalized, Shaw told USA Today Sports. Some days are better than others. It's not where it needs to be. I still feel sick quite often. I am asking for sympathy, and hopefully a miracle can happen. A native of Dallas, Shaw played college basketball at Oklahoma State and Utah State, averaging 14.2 points per game in his final 2 seasons with Utah State, and earning second-team All-Western Athletic Conference honors before being selected 18th in the 2015 NBA Development League draft by the Santa Cruz Warriors. Among his professional basketball stops, he has played in Japan, Tunisia, Lebanon, and Saudi Arabia. Shaw won an Indonesian Basketball League's championship in 2023 with Prawira Harum Bandung and was named an IBL All-Star Game reserve in 2024, suiting up for the Satria Muda Pertimia. Arrested for mailed CBD gummies. His current saga began on May 7, 2025. Early that day, Shaw's Tangerine Hawks scored a home victory over his former team, Satria Muda, with Shaw notching 28 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 assists. Shaw was later detained by Indonesian authorities on suspicion of drug trafficking after receiving a package of cannabidiol CBD gummies from Thailand, which he said he took only to combat symptoms of Crohn's disease. Recreational marijuana was legal in Thailand at the time of Shaw's arrest. In a subsequent search of Shaw's apartment in Tenggara region, west of Indonesian capital of Jakarta, authorities found 132 pieces of cannabis candies called Delta-9 THC, tetrahydrocannabinol. The gummies seized weighed 30 ounces, less than 2 pounds. After Shaw's arrest by the Soekarno Hatta Airport police in the lobby of his apartment complex, the Indonesian Basketball Association banned him for life, and Shaw's deal with the Tangerine Hawks was terminated for breach of contract, which prohibited him from using illegal drugs. Indonesia is notorious for having some of the world's strictest drug laws, and those caught trafficking can face the death penalty. Indonesia's last execution in July of 2016 involved 4 convicted drug traffickers, including foreign nationals who faced a firing squad. Shah was ultimately convicted in December of 2025 and sentenced to 26 months in prison. During the trial, medical tests revealed that Shah needed to be hospitalized because of his condition. He has yet to receive medical attention since his sentence. I feel like that's what's most important. Yeah, I committed a crime I wasn't aware of. You know, the laws and stuff here, Shah said. But I feel like the most important thing for me right now, and that's to get back to Texas so I can get to a doctor, get back to my family, to my mom. I just need to get deported back to America so I can get back to taking care of myself. According to Shah's legal team and medical documents obtained by USA Today Sports, his condition is dire and his health is deteriorating. He is suffering from 3 active infections, gastrointestinal bleeding, and complications from Crohn's disease that require specialized care unavailable at his current facility. Shah still needs a gastroscopy, colonoscopy, polynectomy, intestinal ultrasound, and a CT enterography as part of his treatment plan. When or if he is released from prison, these procedures will require a minimum 3-day hospital stay. Shah is receiving support from an international criminal justice advocate, Dante West, based in Kansas City, Missouri, who is serving as his primary negotiator, and from Vlasic Labs, which has raised money to help nonviolent cannabis prisoners pay for commissary and hire attorneys on their behalf by sponsoring a golf tournament. Once West was on board to help, he said he flew to Indonesia, planning to stay only a few weeks, but remained for the duration of Shah's trial. Roger Wolodarski, the CEO of Puff Company, a company that provides information on extract consumption, has also donated to Shah's cause. West knows a thing or two about trials involving cannabis possession. He was sentenced to 7 years and 8 months in a Kansas prison in 2017 for marijuana possession as a first-time offender. That sentence was overturned in 2021, and he was exonerated after serving 3 years in prison. Crowded, challenging conditions. When he was first arrested, Shah spent time at the Tangerang prison, best known for the 2021 fire that killed 41 inmates and injured more than 80 others. That prison, built in 1972, was originally designed to house about 900 inmates. Its population has since swelled to more than 2,000. Shah is now housed at the Lapis Kellis 1 Tangerine prison, which has similar crowding and safety issues as Tangerine. To help take his mind off living conditions, he wakes up mid-morning to exercise, usually doing yoga stretches, and talks to his family via video call. Shah says the prison guards are known to smoke cigarettes and wear flip-flops on duty. "I'm a simple guy," said Shah, who also spends his days working on a book detailing his experiences. "I really don't do too much. I really don't go outside my space. You know, it's freezing already. I'm not here to really make friends or anything. I just stick to my stuff. But my day-to-day, it's just that I try to take the little medicine that they give me, but it's really not helping." Shah's medical symptoms vary. Some days he is violently ill because of ulcerative colitis, an inflammatory bowel disease, diagnosed in 2022. On other days, it's indigestion caused by the food served at the prison. Bouts of depression add another layer to Shah's precarious situation. With the help of the West and officials at the U.S. Embassy in Jakarta, Shah has at least been able to see a doctor to obtain some of the care and the medicine he needs, and to ensure his rights are not being violated, even though he says the medicine he gets doesn't solve any of the issues. I think that was a misconception that the public was changing the narrative of him being a user, not a trafficker, to the population among us, West said. The most important thing is that people will use Jared's case to save other people's lives. Trump administration help sought. Previous presidential administrations have been active in certain international criminal cases, especially when they involve someone who has been wrongly imprisoned, and there is precedent for the U.S. government to intervene when an American is detained overseas or arrested for drug offenses. The most notable case was the WNBA player Brittany Griner. Griner was returning to Russia to play for Yekaterinburg UMMC in March 2022 during the WNBA's off-season when the Russian Federal Customs Service arrested and charged her with drug smuggling after she was found with vape cartridges containing cannabis oil in her carry-on luggage. The 10-time WNBA All-Star and 2-time Olympic gold medalist was sentenced to 9 years in Russian prison before President Joe Biden's administration agreed to a prisoner exchange for Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout, who was serving a 25-year sentence for conspiring to sell millions of dollars worth of weapons. Griner was released in December 2022 after 8 months in prison and resumed her professional basketball career months later. You'll see how crazy the Indonesian prison is. So it's just like he has a real story to tell, and I think people make a big deal about this. And you know, Brittany Griner got all this publicity because, of course, she has the whole WNBA backing her, West said. Once he steps out of prison, I think it'll be even that much more impactful because he's going to save a lot of lives. West said his first priority is to get Shah out of prison to deal with his medical issues. He has reached out to the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and the U.S. Ambassador to Indonesia, Peter Hammond, in hopes of securing Shah's release. The 32-year-old West, who is studying under the California Law Office program, has been a spokesperson of the nonprofit The Last Prisoner Project and believes that Hammond can help and believes Shah is the perfect person to receive leniency. West's work with Shah is independent of the Last Prisoner Project, which only works with prisoners incarcerated in the United States. I don't think extended incarceration of Jared Shah protects the country of Indonesia, West said. That's our goal. And just in case the State Department doesn't come get Jared Shah, I think there's remission. Hopefully, there's some type of parole mechanism, a medical parole. One good thing we do have is the doctor's documents that say he requires medical attention, and hopefully they honor that in the different governments of Indonesia. Counselor staff have visited Shah several times since his arrest, remain in constant contact with his family, and told USA Today Sports that they will stay closely engaged in his case. The Trump administration has no higher priority than American safety and security, a State Department spokesman told USA Today Sports. We take seriously our commitment to assist Americans abroad, and the U.S. Embassy in Jakarta is providing consular assistance to Jared Shah. West said that there has been interest in making a movie based on Shah's life and experience behind bars. But for now, time is ticking. I am grateful that the United States State Department has confirmed that consular officers remain actively engaged in Jared Shah's case and have maintained regular contact with him during his detention in Indonesia, West said. With the United States government closely monitoring the situation, we respectfully hope Indonesian authorities will give full consideration to the humanitarian and medical circumstances surrounding Jared's case as his parole review moves forward. Shah says neither he nor anyone in his family has talked to anyone from the Department of State, but are thankful that the leaders in Washington for the Trump administration are engaged in my situation and watching closely. I know our country is dealing with many serious issues around the world, but my hope is to return home to Texas so I can receive the medical care the doctor said I urgently need, Shah said. I love my country and I do not want to die in another country. Shah's case highlights drastically different laws and attitudes about cannabis in the United States and other countries. According to Harm Reduction International, China, Iran, North Korea, Singapore, Saudi Arabia, and Vietnam are among the countries that use the death penalty for individuals convicted of drug offenses. However, beating a death penalty sentence, no matter what the crime, is extremely rare in Indonesia, a country of 287 million. According to the Directorate General of Correction, there are nearly 600 people on Indonesia's death row, with nearly 100 of them foreigners. In December, President Donald Trump mandated the Drug Enforcement Agency and the Department of Justice, by executive order, to move marijuana from a Schedule I drug to a Schedule III substance. Among the Schedule I drugs defined as substances that are abusive and have no accepted medical use, marijuana was included with heroin, LSD, and ecstasy. Although taking the drug would still be illegal at the federal level, the move has the potential to change drug regulation. Currently, 40 states and Washington, D.C. allow for the use of medical marijuana. The legal cannabis market size in the United States was $21 billion in 2023 and is expected to reach $102.2 billion by the end of the decade. Despite his incarceration and declining health, Shah remains optimistic that he will be out of prison soon. I would tell my supporters, thank you for watching over me until this point. I have come a long way from beating the death penalty. My concern now is just my health, maintaining my health, and that's to get back to Texas so I can get to a doctor, get back to my family, to my mom, Shah said. Aaron Parnas rises to his media moment. Vice President Kamala Harris skirted tradition in September when she picked liberal prodigy Aaron Parnas instead of a cable news host to helm the first tour stop for her tell-all 2024 campaign book, 107 Days. Thank you for giving me the best job in the world, Parnas wrote on social media after the New York event, sharing a selfie with Harris before a packed house at the town hall venue in Manhattan. We're just getting started. Parnas rose from a boy wonder in Boca Raton, Florida, to one of the most fouled left-wing personalities of President Donald Trump's second term. The one-man content generation factory introduces each story with a variation of his signature catchphrase, "We have some news right now," completing his deadpan delivery of the day's biggest developments in an even tone. From his front-facing iPhone camera, the low-key lawyer, formerly a practicing civil litigator, amassed more than 7.5 million followers on Instagram and TikTok. His fan base ellipses the entire fouling of the progressive American media companies such as Huffington Post and Mother Jones. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 19 minutes past the hour. In December, the business magazine Forbes named him among its annual 30 Under 30 media influencers, an honor bestowed on an impactful 20-somethings. 2 hours later, Parnas recorded, more than 5.5 million TikTok views as he sat outside a coffee bar location in Washington, D.C. on December 17th discussing his rise. My dream in all of this is to one day run a non-profit or some type of foundation where I can fund public defense work, Parnas told USA Today in an interview. Highly recognized on his own as a public figure, Parnas is the son of Lev Parnas, a Soviet-born associate of former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who was sentenced to prison for campaign finance crimes in a scheme intended to support Trump's 2020 re-election bid. I think for me, and I've said this a lot, is the day my dad got arrested in October 10th of 2019. I said, I no longer was Aaron Parnas, he said. I became Lev Parnas' son, and that kind of shift in the public eye was really frustrating to me. His recent ascent comes as global audience shift from linear TV industry and move toward individual figures. Ahead of the curve at 18, I grew up fast, maybe too fast. Aaron Parnas started taking college classes at 14 and collected his high school and college diplomas at 18. He quipped in his newsletter last year that people often called him Doogie Howser, a reference to sitcom star Neil Patrick Harris' early 90s turn as a teenage medical doctor. I grew up fast, maybe too fast, he wrote. I missed the milestones that help young people discover who they are. In his youth, Parnas identified as a Republican, but his views shifted when he turned 18. All my life, I've been setting large goals, Parnas told the Palm Beach Post in 2017. One day, I hope to be President of the United States. Parnas said in an interview last October that when you grow up in a family where the only thing on TV is Fox News, that's all you know. His father was charged in 2019 with federal campaign finance violations. The younger Parnas self-published his memoir the following year about the ordeal titled Trump First, How the President and His Associates Turned Their Back on Me and My Family. The elder Parnas, a businessman, left the Soviet Union with his family as a child to resettle in the United States. He was convicted in October 2021 of wire fraud conspiracy and making false statements related to Trump's 2020 campaign. The federal prosecutors said he was involved in a scheme to pass foreign money to U.S. political campaigns and dig up damaging information in Ukraine about Joe Biden in an effort to help Trump's 2020 presidential bid. He was sentenced to 20 months in prison, but served some of that time on home confinement. When media influencers captured the cultural conversation. After graduating from George Washington University Law School at 2021, Aaron Parnas worked at big and small law firms. He formed a significant following in 2022, posting TikTok videos about Russia's invasion of the Ukraine when Biden was in the White House. I tell everyone, I've lived like multiple lives in the past. I don't know, 8 years, 9 years, because it's not that I've accomplished so much, Parnas said. It's just that I've experienced so much. The 2024 presidential election upended the public discourse surrounding political creators like Parnas. When Biden dropped out and Kamala Harris became the Democratic nominee, pundits highlighted that influencers were now molding the cultural conversation across the country. Harris rejected an October spot with the world's most listened to podcast host, Joe Rogan, after the two camps were unable to agree on terms. Political onlookers questioned the Harris campaign's rationale for missing the opportunity after she lost to Trump in November 2024. Commentators puzzled over why Democrats failed to match Republicans toe for toe by leaning on popular online creators like Parnas to convey their message. Republicans started investing in social media in the past year or two, Parnas said. He said Republicans have been doing this since 2015. The influence of Parnas and other creators drew parallels to the podcast giant. He's not the left's Joe Rogan, but he may be even better, the headline of the Rolling Stones declared in June. His TikTok has nearly 600 million all-time likes. His Parnas Perspective newsletter on Substack is ranked number 1 in the news categories. He wakes up every morning by 7:45 a.m., pours a cup of coffee, and releases his first Substack morning report by 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. His loyal fan base is diverse, ranging from Gen Z political observers to white MS Now moms, and black TikTokers who praise his go posting schedule. His typical he typically posts about 10 stories a day. Parnas always has major news to share, garnering internet attention. We have some major Iran war updates right now, he said March 3rd, following in line with his regular tagline. Skipping the commentary and building trust. Parnas, who describes himself as an independent reporter, had a breakout year in 2025 when he moderated Harris' 107 Days kickoff in New York. The tour's first night was briefly interrupted by protesters of the war in Gaza. I'm not president right now. There's nothing I can do, she said, as seen in online videos. Parnas has, at times, faced criticism for his support of Israel. I have and will continue to report on Israel and the atrocities in Gaza as I have regularly on multiple platforms, he said when asked about the backlash. Parnas said moderating the event was an amazing night and an honor. A year after Harris' loss, he participated in a roundtable discussion with Barack Obama, and then he earned the 30 Under 30 nod from Forbes. When asked why people are drawn to him in the USA Today interview last October, Parnas explained that the way I present myself on TikTok or Instagram is the exact same way I present myself in person. Independent internet reporters, including Parnas, have also garnered throwback over their sourcing. Parnas said March 4th that, at this point, I do a lot of my own original sourcing and reporting and cite to a third party whenever I rely on them in any of my videos and content. Parnas' approach to content creation has landed with audiences because he's able to appeal to independents or conservatives who are frustrated with MAGNA because the way he presents his reports is really objective, according to Seton Hall University communications professor Jess Rochberg. Cultural critic Saren Olkaba of the social media page at Sarong Things attributes Parnas' success to his objectivity. I think it's the fact that he doesn't add a lot of his own, like commentary to it, Olkaba said, adding that Parnas is very clear about his beliefs. He has built trust with his audience. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 29 minutes past the hour. We're going to move on to the money issue. USA Today names VP of News Jamie Stockwell to grow audience network ties. USA Today has hired Jamie Stockwell to serve as Vice President of News, effective March 30th, as the national outlet modernizes and tightens ties with the USA Today's networks, more than 200 local news organizations. Stockwell brings deep experience leading high-stakes coverage across large, complex newsrooms. Most recently, she served as deputy managing editor of news at the Washington Post. Jamie's career has been defined by ambitious journalism, digital innovation, and a deep commitment to the evolving needs and the preferences of modern audiences, USA Today Senior Vice President Monica Richardson said in the March 10th announcement. Her experience building high-performing teams at local and national level, driving transformation, and producing high-impact storytelling with her candid leadership style will be instrumental as we accelerate USA Today's evolution and solidify our role as America's essential facts-forward news service and news source, Richardson said. Stockwell will report to Richardson as they work to grow the company's broad national audience with unbiased, high-impact journalism, the company said. Stockwell began her journalism career at the Post as an intern and later as a Metro reporter covering criminal justice for nearly 8 years. Stockwell went on to hold senior editing roles at the New York Times, where she was deputy national editor, and at the San Antonio Express News in Texas, where she was managing editor. She also played a key role in building Axios Local, serving as executive editor during its rapid expansion from 8 to 30 markets and more than 100 journalists. Before becoming the Post deputy managing editor of news, she directed coverage of major crises and led investigative and enterprise journalism as executive local editor. USA Today has a powerful mission and a unique place in American journalism, Stockwell said. I'm honored to join this highly respected newsroom of accomplished journalists as we work together to embrace modernization and cut through the noise and deliver journalism and content that informs, empowers, and connects people across the country. Stockwell earned her bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Texas at Austin. She has completed executive leadership training through the Hearst Management Institute and Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management. This looks like a good article for this area. Potholes can hurt more than just vehicle wheels. Potholes will come for us all one day. While many of them are minor and barely affect your vehicle beyond the obvious bump, some of the larger ones can cause some serious damage if you hit them hard enough. While many drivers believe the only damage caused by potholes is to the wheels and tires, there can be hidden damage too. How much does it cost to repair pothole damage? The prices for repairs from potholes can vary depending on what exactly is broken. The average repair price can start at $200 on the low end if all that it needs is to be repaired, or if all that needs to be repaired is a punctured tire or a cracked wheel. It will get worse if other suspension components or advanced driver assistance systems are damaged. What causes potholes? Potholes can be caused by many factors. One of the most common ways potholes form is when water seeps into the cracks in the road and freezes, expanding the cracks. Another way they can form is by the constant load of heavy vehicles driving over cracks that can loosen and move the pavement. Is there a safe way to avoid potholes? If you are on an empty road with no vehicles next to you, then it may be safe to maneuver around a pothole. If there is a pothole you can't avoid, there is still a way to limit potential damage. Dwayne "Doc" Watson, technical trainer for the Bosch Mobility and Aftermarket, spoke to the Detroit Free Press, part of the USA Today network, in an interview about what you can do if there is a pothole you can't avoid. You need to try to slow down. So when you're slowing down just as you're coming up to the pothole, take your foot off the brake. That allows the tire to keep rolling without trying to slide and bounce over the other side of the pothole. Okay, good advice. Tesla slashes Cybertruck price in limited time deal. New starting price for the pickup is $59,990. Tesla's Cybertruck is big, bold, and pricey depending on which trim you choose. The unique electric pickup truck was one of the most highly anticipated electric vehicles of its time before its release. It ranked up nearly 1 million reservations according to the automotive enthusiast site Torque News. Cybertruck hype has not quite translated into sales since the truck has become one of the brand's least popular nameplates. The Cybertruck's design pushes boundaries in many ways, and several of its characteristics, including its high price, make it unattainable for average American drivers. Now drivers will have the opportunity to purchase a Cybertruck for $20,000 less than its former starting price of $79,990. The Tesla Cybertruck is heavily discounted for a limited time. Tesla's new starting price for the Cybertruck fully electronic pickup truck is $59,990, making it even cheaper than key rivals such as the Rivian RIT $72,990 and the Chevy Silverado EV $73,100. It will only start under $60,000 for 10 days, according to an ex-post from Tesla CEO Elon Musk. There are several differences between the new dual-motor all-wheel drive base model and the premium all-wheel drive upper trim. The more expensive Cybertruck features an air suspension, which is better for off-road capability and overall ride quality. Tesla's cheaper Cybertruck uses a coil spring suspension with active dampening. The upper trim also features a premium upholstery interior and a better audio system than the new base model. Another big difference is that the more affordable model only has 7,500 pounds of towing capacity compared to the premium all-wheel drive model's 11,000 pounds of towing capacity. Aside from towing capacity, the performance specs of the most affordable Cybertruck and its premium trim are practically identical. Tesla has stripped down the Cybertruck to temporarily offer a budget-oriented model and make the EV more appealing to the average new car buyer. Is the Cybertruck worth considering now that it's cheaper? The most affordable version of the Cybertruck has competitive performance specs that are appealing enough to turn some heads. Its driving range is solid enough to ward off range anxiety for some drivers, and it's extremely quick for such a large truck. Tesla's electric pickup has more appeal than just the brand's innovative software and infotainment features. Its exterior design is easily one of the most distinctive in the industry. Additionally, drivers can recharge the truck to 80% in around 45 minutes, according to Kelley Blue Book. The Cybertruck's new base model provides sufficient value for the money based on average new car pricing and its specs. Who should buy the Tesla Cybertruck? The Cybertruck is best for drivers who are prepared to regularly charge EV publicly or at home. This truck is a good choice for fans of the brand who are intrigued by the novelty of its design and its extraordinary performance specs. The Cybertruck may provide more value for the money, priced at $59,990, but its price is hard to justify compared to more affordable popular EVs such as the Model Y. The Cybertruck's target demographic is drivers comfortable with EV ownership who want the utility and power of a pickup truck. What are the best new electric trucks for 2026? Ford has discontinued the F-150 Lightning, but there are still several electric trucks on the market that are solid options for drivers searching within the segment. 2026 electric pickup trucks. Tesla Cybertruck starting at $59,900. Chevrolet Silverado EV starting at $73,100. GMC Sierra EV starting at $62,400. The Hummer EV truck starting at $97,200. The Rivian R1T starting at $72,990. Edmunds recently gave the Rivian R1T its top-rated electric truck award. It is impressively quick in both sharp handling and the max battery pack. It's the most powerful electric truck on sale today, the automotive site said. R1T is pricey, but it delivers on mind-blowing power and capability. Now that the Cybertruck is more affordable than the R1T, drivers could choose Tesla's model over Rivian's EV because of how easy it is to charge using Tesla's massive supercharger network. Ford Motor recalls more than 1.7 million vehicles. More than 1 million Ford vehicles will need to be repaired after being recalled over rear view camera issues. A total of about 1.7 million cars manufactured by Ford were recalled because of two different rear view camera issues, according to two recall notices from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration published on March 3rd. In one recall notice, Ford said the rear view cameras in certain Bronco and Edge vehicles may not display while in reverse gear. In the other notice, some Ford Escape and Ford Explorers, as well as the Lincoln Corsair and Aviator vehicles, may display inverted images on the rear view cameras. In both cases, the vehicle rear view camera issues may affect the driver's view and ability to see what's behind the car, increasing the risk of a crash. Is your car included in the Ford recalls? Here's how to check. Which Ford cars are being recalled? The recall notice about issues displaying the rear view camera applies to 21 through 26 Ford Bronco and the 21 through 24 Ford Edge vehicles. The other recall notice, which has to do with the inverted rear view camera images, applies to the following cars: Ford Escape model years 2020 to 2022, Ford Explorer models 2020 to 2024, Lincoln Aviator models 2020 to 2024, Lincoln Corsair model years 2020 to 2022. What to do if your car has been recalled? For both recalls, Ford said it's working to provide software to repair the rear view camera issues. When the software becomes available, Ford will notify owners via mail to schedule a free repair. Ford plans to mail Bronco and Edge owners affected by the recall beginning March 30th. For the recall impacting some Ford Escapes and Ford Explorers, as well as the Lincoln Aviator and Corsair vehicles, Ford expects to mail notification letters beginning April 17th. How to check if your car is recalled. Both the NHTSA recall database and USA Today's recall database for car and motor vehicle recalls are regularly updated with the latest status on vehicles, car parts, and other accessories. To check if your car has been affected, car owners can either search their car's make or model in USA Today's recall database or look it up on NHTSA's website. The NHTSA website also has features that allows owners to search recalls directly using their vehicle's license plate number or vehicle identification number. The site also provides information about recalled car seats, tires, and other equipment. A 1949 Jeep reimagined as fire-shooting rat rod. Logan Fry's 1949 Willys probably won't remind you of any Jeeps you've seen before. It's got some olive green paint and an American flag hanging off the rear corner, and it looks like a machine to be reckoned with. That's without accounting for the inoperable .30 caliber gun mounted on the passenger side. He's quick to note that the gun's a replica, which he begs some nice guy in Ohio to sell him, but live bullets are 100% ready to go. Fry's ride was one of the plethora of custom vehicles on the lower level of Huntington Place for this year's Detroit Autorama, which wrapped up March 1st. The lower level was set aside as a Tora Extreme. This Jeep with a custom chassis, 1984 Ford F-150 drivetrain, and a 351 Windsor engine is Fry's pride and joy. The 24-year-old construction worker from Gibraltar, Michigan, is also happy to call it a rat rod, a category of customs that puts them far from ordinary. A Jeep was never meant to sit on the ground, and now it is, and it's got twin turbos, and it's just basically a huge go-kart. It's just a bunch of random parts, random makes and models, all thrown together with different ideas that people have, Fry says, of his vehicle and what makes something a rat rod. It could be a daily driver, he said, but it's got a bit of rough ride, so it's more likely to head car shows. That didn't prevent Fry's from installing heated seats in this open to the elements vehicle with it's also got something else that might get noticed. It's got a rev limiter on it. I can rev it up, and once I got it in park, I can shoot about a 4-foot flame out of the exhaust as I'm sitting in the park just revving it up, he said. Okay. That's interesting. Organizers aim to restore historic relics. Each state will submit artifacts into the time capsule. When West Point archaeologists pried open a 200-year-old time capsule left by cadets in the early 1800s, they expected to discover forgotten treasures and historic documents. Instead, they found gray clumps of dust and a few old coins. This is the nightmare situation organizers with the America 250 Commission are hoping to avoid this year as they work to bury priceless artifacts at Independence National Historical Park in Philadelphia for future Americans to open in 2276. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 48 minutes after the hour. We're going to continue with Time Capsule. The project mandated by Congress in 2016 has been no easy feat. 250 years is a really long time, said Jacob Rickert, an engineer with the National Institute of Standards and Technology, who has been working to build the capsule. The materials scientists plan to use to create a lasting vessel have never been tested for that length of time. Stainless steels have been around less than 100 years, Rickert said. Material choice overall is just very hard. Building an impenetrable capsule. The project is unlike anything undertaken for other national milestone anniversaries Organizers for the bicentennial, for instance, opted to shelve that time capsule in a climate-controlled room at the National Archives rather than deep in the ground. For more than a year, Rickert has worked with government engineers, archivists, and national parks personnel to develop a device that will insulate and preserve dozens of present-day documents from national elements like water, oxygen, temperature fluctuations for the country's 500th anniversary. Originally, they planned to enclose the capsule in a 46-foot-long snake sculpture inspired by Benjamin Franklin's 1754 Join or Die cartoon that's planned for Independence Mall in Philadelphia. But questions swirled about whether even that would survive nature's wrath for 2.5 centuries. Plan B is a 3-foot by 2-foot stainless steel cylindrical vessel with a metal bell jar cover that will envelope the capsule in an air pocket. It's designed to provide several layers of protection from water intrusion. If you've ever been in a swimming pool and you take a bucket, you turn it upside down, and you pull it down into the water, it traps an air bubble in the bucket. That's exactly what we're doing here, Rickert said. Documents and memorabilia will sit inside individual chambers within the capsule. Each state and territory will have its own shelf in the artifacts box, and archival papers will be placed in separate sealed chambers. We can't have things that will be off-gassing, for example, and affecting other things within the capsule, said Tom Medema, the project manager of America's Time Capsule. The chemical makeup of the items that go in here over 250 years have to be stable enough to not impact the others. As for the location, Medema said he expects the National Park Service to care for Independence Mall for centuries to come. The area is about 30 feet above sea level, but should it see flooding or any other climate change impacts, preservationists will move the capsule to another location along with the Liberty Bell and the other historical structures in the area. Once the capsule is buried on July 4th, the Park Service will take ownership of it and will be responsible for eventually unearthing it. What history will be inside? In its final form, the capsule will hold materials from all 50 states, 3 branches of the federal government, and the America 250 Commission's commemorative events. So far, the American 250 Commission has chosen items from the 2026 Rose Parade, sports memorabilia, an American flag, and student submissions to include. States and territories have until March 15th to submit the relics and memorabilia they hope to include. Whatever they choose will need to fit within the confines of the capsule. The Commission initially gave each state a prescribed list of items they could choose from and has fielded a flurry of questions that give hints into what might ultimately end up in the cylindrical. Hawaii, for instance, asked for an exemption to the rule asking states to only submit one piece of paper, noting that any letter written in native Hawaiian would run at least several pages. Medema said the Commission has also fielded questions about pewter as a metal going in there from one of the states, if the object could be pewter and gold and some of the other elements. As for the federal government, America 250 Chair Rosie Rios said she's been in contact with the Supreme Court, Congress, and the White House about artifacts they might want to highlight for future generations. America 250 will reveal the capsule content in May or June. It will be displayed in Philadelphia before it's placed in the ground on July 4th for the next 250 years. This is typical America to me, Rickert said. You come with a huge challenge, and then we overcome it. Tylenol drops for pregnant women amid autism claims. President Donald Trump's statements in September about Tylenol use during pregnancy and autism have likely had a real-world impact despite experts and years of evidence disproving any link, a new study shows. After a White House briefing September 22nd in which Trump, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and other officials said they have found an answer to autism and told pregnant women to avoid taking Tylenol, the brand for acetaminophen and paracetamol. Emergency room orders for the drug fell noticeably, according to research published March 5th in the medical journal The Lancet. The study found that the use of acetaminophen to treat pregnant patients decreased by 10% in the months after the briefing, which with limited evidence has linked an increased risk of autism to Tylenol use during pregnancy. There was no change in Tylenol use, however, for women of the same age who were pregnant. The drop-off in Tylenol orders began as quickly as the day after the news conference, said study co-author Michael Bennett, professor of health services policy and practice at Brown University School of Public Health. The rapidity of the response was surprising to us, he told USA Today. Public officials' words have power, and both the public and their clinicians shifted behavior immediately. Fewer Tylenol orders as unproven treatments increase. The study authors used 2025 data from an electronic database that housed health records for 294 million patients for more than 1,632 U.S. hospitals and 37,000 clinics to compare emergency room prescriptions from a period before the White House news briefing, June 30th to September 21st, to after September 22nd to December 7th. We found that acetaminophen prescriptions for pregnant women ages 15 to 44 decreased by 10% over the full September-December study period. The decrease peaked at 20% in the third week after Trump's announcements. Prescriptions tended back toward a more standard number as the study went on, something the authors attribute to the news conference fading from people's minds and disapproving messengers from the organizations like the World Health Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and autism self-advocacy networks. Because acetaminophen is so familiar and known as safe, there could have been a decay in concern as people went back to normal routines, Barrett said. We will need more data to see if there was a durable decrease in use or not over a long period of time. The study could not account for seasonality. Cold and flu season, which begins in November, usually accounts for an increase in acetaminophen prescriptions. Pregnant women using acetaminophen at home or treatment outside the emergency room departments. Patients and healthcare providers were not interviewed, so it was not known whether more patients refused acetaminophen or fewer providers prescribed it in the first place. The results show the apparent power that public authority figures have to drive sudden changes in healthcare practices, the study said. No new data was presented, and yet immediate use changes were observed. At the same news conference, Trump and his advisors also discussed a potential treatment for autism, the drug levocorvin, which Kennedy reportedly is fast-tracking for FDA approval. New outpatient levocorvin prescriptions for children ages 5 to 17 increased 71% during the study period, despite a lack of clinical trials or evidence backing the use in autistic people. The Trump administration, Tylenol and autism.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is David Frothingham. The headline on the front page of the sports section today reads, Gold Standard Combination. Beth Mowins and Debbie Antonelli are the voices of college women's basketball, by Mitchell Norman. In March of 1995, as the women's NCAA tournament was approaching, ESPN called Debbie Antonelli to offer her a job as a color analyst for the regional round of March Madness. They told her she was going to be partnering with Beth Mowins, who could handle play-by-play duties. Antonelli's first response was, "Who?" "I had no idea," she recalls now. "I had never heard of her." Antonelli declined that gig because she had just had a baby, but in the fall of 1996, she heard Mowins' name again, this time from a local TV station in Pennsylvania that wanted her to call Penn State women's basketball games. This time, she accepted. On Tuesday, November 26, 1996, Antonelli and Mowins were the voices on Penn State's 76-62 win over Seton Hall. Angie Pothoff scored 21 points in the victory for the Nittany Lions in what would be the first of countless college women's basketball games Antonelli and Mowins have called together. This is the 30th season the duo has been telling the story of college women's basketball. At a time where the sport is growing by leaps and bounds in viewership and attendance, fans know that when they see Antonelli and Mowins that they are tuning into an important game. Quote, they've been trailblazers as broadcasters, ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips told USA Today Sports. It's hard for me to think of a better combination than Debbie and Beth and what they've meant. I just think they are the gold standard, and it gives me great comfort before I watch a game they're on. I don't know if they have any peers that I'm aware of that have done quite what they've done, end quote. Antonelli and Mowins went from not knowing each other to close friends. After traveling the country together for 3 decades, sketching out ideas on bar napkins after games, and vacationing together with their families, they can finish each other's sentences. They have a routine that's second nature. Even while sitting in a green room in Colonial Life Arena in South Carolina, Antonelli sat on the left side of the couch while Mowins sat on the right, just as they would be if they were courtside at a broadcast table. Quote, she's part of our family. She's watched my boys grow up, Antonelli said of Mowins. I prep a certain way when I work with Beth because I don't have to worry about the other things, and that allows me to do what I'm really good at, which is taking a deeper dive. We tell you the how and the why. Wild, wild west of women's hoops. Antonelli's path to television began when she was 23 years old. After playing basketball for the Hall of Fame coach Kay Yao at NC State, she was on a Wolfpack team that won the ACC regular season and tournament championships in 1986. Antonelli went to work at the University of Kentucky as director of marketing for the athletic department. A local TV station approached the Wildcats with the idea of producing and televising some of their games. Antonelli not only convinced them to do women's basketball, but she persuaded them to let her be on the broadcast as an analyst. A few years later, Antonelli took a similar job at Ohio State and again struck up conversations with the local cable company. Antonelli soon became the voice of Buckeyes women's basketball games across Ohio. I was like, wow, this is just like everything I thought coaching would be, except you don't deal with the players, Antonelli told USA Today Sports. It had everything else, watching film, prep, practice, all the things that I love about the job. It ran parallel with my interest in growing the game. Mowins' path was a bit more traditional. Her dad was a coach, and she played basketball at Lafayette College, where she set program records for assists in a season and career. Since then, she went to Syracuse's Newhouse School, and not long after graduating with her master's degree, became a play-by-play voice for a Big East women's basketball game of the week, shown on 6 cable outlets in the Northeast in the early 1990s. ESPN, which is based in Bristol, Connecticut, is nestled in the heart of the Big East footprint. Quote, "The Big East Network saw me doing Syracuse games, and I started doing the Big East Game of the Week, and those were on in Connecticut, and ESPN saw me doing those, and then it just kind of grew from there," Mullins told USA Today Sports. "Back in those days, it was the wild, wild west." Mullins said she and Antonelli first started working together. When she and Antonelli first started working together, they would call several games a week in different time zones for multiple different networks. They were women's basketball broadcasting mercenaries. They might be at Michigan State working a CBS game on a Saturday, then fly to North Carolina for a Duke game on ESPN on Sunday, then to New York for a St. John's game for the Big East, then to Texas to do a broadcast for Fox Sports Southwest. "Shoot, I'd be gone for 3 weeks at a time," Antonelli says. "It was a hustle. But we were young, we were hungry, we were working our craft," Mullins said, "and probably staying out too late. We would meet the coaches after the game for a drink. We'd make them buy," Antonelli said. "We did all that before the internet, before phone cameras. When it comes to making post-game arrangements, I make those. After carrying her for 2 hours, I'm exhausted," Mullins says with a laugh. "I don't want to have to make any decisions after that." Antonelli was a freelancer for the first 28 years of her television career. These days, she's mainly calling games for ESPN and its partners on the ACC and SEC networks. She's typically working on men's game and 2 women's games a week. There are times when her schedule gets stacked up, like when she called 9 games in a 14-day span earlier this season. Mullins stays busy as the college sports seasons cross over. In the fall, she calls college football, and in the spring, she's one of the voices of the Women's College World Series. Since joining ESPN in 1994, Mullins has called NCAA championships in basketball, softball, soccer, and volleyball. In 2017, she became the first woman to call a nationally televised NFL game when she did a Monday Night Football broadcast between Chargers and Broncos. For many young women in broadcasting, Mullins isn't a role model, she's the standard. Quote, "She's always been someone to aspire to and learn from, but she's also someone who has given me hope in the incredibly wild world that is being a woman in sports," says Mia O'Brien, an ESPN radio host based in Jacksonville, Florida. "As I've strived to grow as a play-by-play announcer, it's made me respect Beth tenfold. It's been difficult for me to find reps today in the 2020s, so I can't even begin to imagine what her road to national prominence entailed. I know nothing except for hoops." Antonelli has one of the sharpest minds in basketball. Part of that could be due to the fact that basketball is all Antonelli consumes, which is why Mullins' pop culture references fly over her head. "I know nothing except for hoops," Antonelli says. "I don't watch any shows, I watch basketball." Mullins likens Antonelli's ability to dissect X's and O's to Tony Romo and Dan Orlovsky on NFL broadcasts, in that she can predict what is about to happen on the court. Very few people have that ability, to not only have it stored in there, but then to bring it out when it's appropriate. Debbie is in that group that is just extraordinary because of the way she prepares, Mullins said. She has relationships with all of the coaches. One of the most significant things is, if Debbie calls somebody, they're going to pick up. In addition to the thousands of women's basketball games she's called on television, Antonelli has also been the radio analyst for Westwood One's broadcasts of the Final Four for 30 years. In 2022, Antonelli joined her college coach, Yao, in the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. Wherever she goes, the folks most proud of what Antonelli has accomplished in growing the game of women's basketball seem to be at her alma mater, NC State. She's one of the premier announcers, and I'm telling you, she works harder than anybody I know. She's got irons and lots of fires. NC State head coach Wes Moore said of Antonelli, "She does her homework. She knows going into a game what she wants to talk about and cover. Like an old married couple." Over 3 decades, Antonelli and Mullins estimate they've called around 30 games per year together. With that many to choose from, it's difficult for them to pinpoint the most memorable. The first that came to mind for Antonelli was during the COVID-impacted season of 2020-2021. On December 15, 2020, Antonelli and Mullins were 2 of the few people in the building when Stanford beat Pacific pushing Tara Vanderveer ahead of Pat Summitt to become the all-time winningest college women's basketball coach. For Mowens, a trip to North Carolina's Research Triangle sticks out, when on February 1st, 2003, number 2 UConn upset number 1 Duke in a sold-out Cameron Indoor Stadium. Quote, "We hit the heyday of the ACC in the early 2000s. Every weekend was a top 20 matchup," Mowens says. For years, those Triangle schools had tried to build up fan bases, and when UConn came to Cameron Indoor, it was like a men's game. The students all turned out. A photo from that game of Diana Taurasi preparing to throw an inbounds pass with Alana Beard defending her appeared in Sports Illustrated magazine the next week. If you look closely at it and spot a woman wearing a red sweater, that's Mowens' mother sitting near Antonelli's parents. Three decades into broadcasting college women's basketball, Antonelli and Mowens still have a passion for the games, the players, and the coaches. And they show no signs of slowing down. Last weekend, they called games together in Duluth, Georgia, and at the ACC tournament, and will be paired again during March Madness. The duo has lost count of exactly how many games they've done together. I would certainly say it feels like it's been 1,000 games, Mowens says. And I would say one of us deserves a medal, Antonelli says. The other one might need therapy. I think there's something that sort of sets our chemistry apart, Mowens says. When we're working together, we're not afraid to pick at each other, like an old married couple. The next headline on the front page of the sports section today reads, Malik Tua, Ignite Musical Chairs for QBs in NFL by Jarrett Bell. Musical Chairs, NFL Quarterback Edition, is on in full force. Hours after the Miami Dolphins announced it on March 9th that, yes, they were eating a record $99.2 million in releasing Tua Tagovailoa, word came that Malik Willis is headed to South Florida on a 3-year, $67.5 million free agent deal. This quickly took the top free agent quarterback off the market. Never mind that Willis, 26, has all of 6 starts on his NFL resume and reunited the former Green Bay Packers backup with new Dolphins general manager John Eric Sullivan and new coach Jeff Hafley. And hey, it proved you'd better move fast because the QB chairs tend to fill up in a hurry. Weren't the Arizona Cardinals moving on from Kyler Murray in the hunt for Willis? Well, not anymore. Maybe Cards can strike their own free agent reunion in a Plan B movie, given the buzz about Jimmy Garoppolo following new Arizona coach Mike LaFleur to the desert. LaFleur, who worked with Jimmy G the last 2 years with the Rams, was also with the quarterback when he had his best years in Kyle Shanahan's system with the 49ers. Tagovailoa, meanwhile, found his new chair ASAP, reportedly agreeing to a deal with the Atlanta Falcons, who have a seat vacated with the pending release of Kirk Cousins. Clearly, the Falcons need another option as Michael Penix rehabs from a torn ACL. Funny how these musical chairs may line up for the Falcons, now under the new direction of a team president Matt Ryan, GM Ian Cunningham, and coach Kevin Stefanski. 2 years ago, then GM Terry Fontenot took a lot of heat for signing Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million contract that guaranteed $100 million weeks before drafting Penix with the 8th pick in the first round. Now the Falcons will land Tagovailoa for a bargain basement 1-year, $1.3 million deal, given that Miami is on the hook to pay the other $54 million guaranteed for the quarterback this year. Overpay, underpay. Guess it can all wash out, maybe sometimes. Does Miami's reunion of former Packers signal a trend? In any event, Miami's move on Willis fittingly kicked off the opening of the NFL's negotiating window on March 9th, i.e. legal tampering, 2 days before the free agent market and new league year commences. You knew the Dolphins could be a player, given the way Sullivan described Willis's market value during the scouting combine recently. Willis is young, healthy, and developed well under Packers coach Matt LaFleur. He played sparingly as Jordan Love's backup, but was impressive enough when called on for emergency duty. As Sullivan put it, any team that is potentially in a needy quarterback situation, if they tell you they're not talking about Malik Willis, that would be a lie. No, Sullivan wasn't lying in raising those stakes, and now Willis has jump-started the QB market and perhaps furthered a trend when it comes to reunions. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 15 minutes after the hour. This touches the QB2 market too. The Titans signed Mitchell Trubisky, most recently with the Bills, as a backup for Cam Ward. This opens a chair in Buffalo behind Josh Allen and reunites Trubisky with the new Tennessee coordinator Brian Daboll. They worked together during Trubisky's first stint with the Bills. Keep an eye on the Jets in this regard. Geno Smith, remember, broke into the NFL with the Jets as a second-round pick in 2013. Now he's a potential option for a return. And Smith, like Tagovailoa and Murray, comes with the allure of potentially costing a bargain veteran minimum contract, as he's guaranteed $18.5 million from the Raiders, who cut him loose as they are poised to reboot around likely number 1 overall pick Fernando Mendoza. Then again, Carson Wentz could be in New York's mix too, given his history with the new Jets offensive coordinator Frank Reich. Wentz, 33, had the best year of his career, front-running for NFL MVP honors in 2017 before blowing out his knee, when Reich was his coordinator with the Eagles. Sure, Wentz has been around the block a few times since then. The last 5 seasons, he's played for 5 teams, including the Vikings in 2025. Yet this is not the time to knock a journeyman quarterback. Teams chasing their Sam Darnold storyline. A year ago, Sam Darnold was on the market as a free agent, leaving the Vikings, incidentally, looking for another new team. A month ago, Darnold, who got a 3-year, $105 million free agent contract in 2025, was in the winner's circle with the Seattle Seahawks as a Super Bowl 60 champ. Darnold's rise only adds another layer to the possibilities that exist for this year's free agent quarterback crop. No, the bank is not about to be broken with record deals for quarterbacks. The stars are already accounted for and locked up. Yet comeback QBs are such a thing now. See Baker Mayfield, Daniel Jones, or Mac Jones. Maybe Murray, picked number 1 overall by the Cardinals in 2019, becomes this year's revival star, say, with the Vikings. Murray is more attractive when considering the Cardinals are on the hook to pay his guaranteed $36.8 million this season. This isn't as stunning as it used to be, after the Broncos showed that they could absorb nearly $40 million of Russell Wilson's contract in 2024 and still rebuild, the strain undoubtedly lessened by a rising salary cap. Then there's Aaron Rodgers, at the center of suspense for months last off-season as he contemplated signing with the Steelers. Rodgers showed that he still has something left, 24 touchdowns to 7 interceptions in 2025, helping Pittsburgh win a division crown. Mike Tomlin is gone, but now there is the prospect of a reunion with Mike McCarthy, who he once collaborated with for a Super Bowl crown with the Packers. No doubt, the Steelers are bullish on Rodgers' return. He knows how we feel about him, Steelers GM Omar Khan said during the Combine. Stay tuned. One thing's for certain, with dollars flowing against the backdrop of a record $301.2 million salary cap, and with a rather slim crop of quarterbacks projected for the upcoming draft, Mendoza could be the only first-round pick. The free agent market will be inflated as teams scramble for best available options. On page 2 of today's sports section, the first headline reads, Chiefs fortify hope by adding SB60 MVP, Nate Davis. Travis Kelce's NFL era isn't over yet. Meanwhile, a new era is also apparently beginning for the Kansas City Chiefs, who also agreed on March 9th to sign Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker III away from the Seattle Seahawks. Kelce, the likely first-ballot Hall of Fame tight end and, more recently, pop culture darling, plans to return to the Chiefs for a 14th season. according to multiple reports. Kelsey, who just completed a 2-year, $34.3 million extension, didn't quite reach the open free agency market, yet there also didn't seem to be much doubt he'd play anywhere but KC, the team that drafted him in 2013. Meanwhile, Walker, who agreed to a 3-year, $45 million deal, brings a new element to a franchise trying to prove, well, that its dynastic era isn't over yet. What does it all mean? In the spirit of Taylor Swift's question, let's try to answer some questions. Are Chiefs already back? Some league observers had mused that Kansas City, which missed the playoffs last season for the first time since 2014, and the first time in quarterback Patrick Mahomes' 9-year career, might be in the midst of a mini rebuild, particularly following last week's trade of cornerback Trent McDuffie to the Los Angeles Rams. Apparently not. Let's call it a reset or a reload instead. No squad is luring a 36-year-old tight end back, nor signing a running back to major money if it doesn't expect to contend, and immediately. It remains to be seen if Kansas City can compete for a 4th Lombardi trophy since the start of the 2019 season, especially following a 6-11 campaign that parked the Chiefs in 3rd place in the AFC West. But they're clearly not going to waste any time trying. A clear message sent to the locker room. Just ask defensive tackle Chris Jones. What do Travis Kelce's and Kenneth Walker III's contract mean for Patrick Mahomes? Maybe, hopefully, better protection? Kelce, who has led the Chiefs in receiving yards in 6 of the last 7 seasons, has long been Mahomes' preferred target and seemed to enjoy something of a renaissance in 2025 after a lackluster 2024 season capped by a poor outing in Kansas City's blowout loss in Super Bowl 59. With Kelce continuing to find space in the intermediate area of the field, and Walker providing a huge upgrade in a run game that was virtually non-existent last season, Mahomes had to contribute greatly to it, often running for his life on the way to a career-best 422 yards on the ground. There should be less pressure on the 3-time Super Bowl MVP as he recovers from a torn ACL suffered last December. Walker, who has eclipsed 1,000 rushing yards twice in his 4-year career, could be the first to do so in KC since 2017. Still, an upgrade at right tackle sure would be nice for Mahomes too. What will Chiefs do in draft? It's something of a premature question with free agency a long way from petering out, and the Chiefs were active March 9th, aside from striking deals with Kelce and Walker, also reaching an agreement with defensive lineman Khyiris Tonga on a 3-year, $21 million deal, meaning some help for Jones, too. But a team that now owns 3 of the draft's top 40 selections, including a pair in round 1 following the McDuffie deal, still has plenty of work to do. Joining McDuffie on the Rams is Jalen Watson, who started opposite him in KC last year, meaning the secondary will have to be a point of emphasis at some point. And right tackle also probably ought to be addressed following the release of Jaywan Taylor and struggles Jalen Moore, who is only under contract for 1 more year anyways, had last season. Mahomes was sacked 70 times over the last 2 seasons and was bagged on 6.3% of his dropbacks in 2025, a career worst. That needs to change for a rehabbing star who will be 31 in September. What does Kelce's return mean for Taylor Swift? So much insight to share, so much. More flights to Kansas City, more appearances at Arrowhead for the pop goddess. No complications to the wedding guest list, given Kelce won't be falling in love with a whole new group of teammates and coaches. Maybe still a chance Swift performs with her boo on Super Sunday. The Eras Tour did make a stop at SoFi Stadium, the site of Super Bowl 61, if she finally agrees to a long-anticipated Super Bowl halftime show. Our sources tell us, well, we have no sources here. On page 3 of the USA Today Sports section, headline reads, Best, Worst of NFL Free Agency Deals by Michael Middlehurst Schwartz. NFL free agency doesn't have the overall shock value it once did. With fewer and fewer top players reaching the open market thanks to extensions and franchise tags, all-out spending sprees by teams are increasingly rare. When agreements began materializing March 9th, as the league's negotiating window opened, only a handful of pacts entailed truly surprising sums. But the stakes are still high in March, and several teams took bold action to reshape their future for the coming season, and not always for the better. USA Today Sports graded all of the biggest deals and trades on the first day. Falcons add QB Tua Tagovailoa on 1 year, $1.215 million deal. Grade B+. It sure would be nice for Kevin Stefanski if he could fuse the best qualities of each of his quarterbacks, Tagovailoa's accuracy and Michael Penix Jr.'s ability to drive the ball into tight windows, into one passer. Instead, he's stuck with two players who each amount to half measure behind center. While it's fair to question whether Tagovailoa is a sustainable solution for the franchise, the Falcons aren't going to find meaningful competition for Penix elsewhere at this price point. Atlanta now has insurance in case the third-year signal caller's return from a torn ACL has any hiccups, or if Stefanski merely wants a different look than a player who doesn't appear to be much of a fit in the coach's system due to his preference to work from the shotgun and his reluctance to operate over the middle. Commanders add DE/OLB Odafe Owa on 4-year, $100 million deal. Grade C+. Ahead of free agency, I wrote in my latest mock draft that the Commanders might be priced out of landing a big-name veteran pass rusher. Whoops. Washington instead doled out one of the more stunning sums to land Owa, who came on strong late with all 7.5 of his sacks after being traded to the Los Angeles Chargers last season. In terms of pure disruptiveness, there's plenty to like about the 5-year veteran, but he's never played the role of lead option and true catalyst for a pass rush before, and Washington is betting $68 million guaranteed that he can make the leap. Maybe it was a nearly necessary one given how badly the team has whiffed on cobbling together an edge rush, but it's an inherently risky gamble. Titans add wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson on 4-year, $78 million deal. Grade C. Tennessee wasn't trigger shy at the outset of free agency, pulling in 3 players on deals of $60 million or more. The richest agreement came in the deal for Robinson. It's difficult to square what he can offer an offense as a run-after-catch threat with this kind of payout. There's something to be said for providing Cam Ward with an option who will encourage more checkdowns and fewer heroic efforts in and out of the pocket. But it feels as though the Titans overbid for another piece of new offensive coordinator Brian Daboll knows and is comfortable with. 49ers add wide receiver Mike Evans on a 3-year, $42.4 million deal. Grade A. This is probably the rare case when you can believe an agent when he says a decision wasn't driven by money. Evans's deal was first reported as a $60.3 million pact, but that's actually the maximum value with incentives rather than the base. And with only $16.3 million guaranteed, this partnership is pure upside for San Francisco. Evans sizes up as the kind of well-built ex-receiver to whom Kyle Shanahan used to love funneling targets. He doesn't need to be anything beyond what he is at this stage in his career to make a massive difference for the 49ers offense. San Francisco just needs to settle the Trent Williams saga to make sure the offense is in top form for the title push. Saints add running back Travis Etienne Jr. on 4-year, $52 million deal. Grade C-. Similar to the Chiefs, the Saints seemed desperate to invigorate a lackluster ground game, which ranked 31st in yards per carry. But what's the rush? New Orleans isn't anywhere close to Kansas City in establishing contending credentials, and the famously atypical spender doesn't need to get bogged down in paying top dollar for running backs, especially one who is an effective but not transcendent talent. Having Tyler Show on a rookie contract confers some advantages and flexibility. Still, the more reasonable route might have been to look to the middle rounds of the draft for a ball carrier. New Orleans has more work to do up front to get its rushing attack right, though linking up with offensive guard David Edwards was a nice start to that effort. Raiders add C. Tyler Linderbaum on 3-year, $81 million deal. Grade B-. Few numbers were as jarring as Linderbaum's $27 million per year average annual value, which represented a 50% increase over Creed Humphrey's previous market-setting rate at center. For a Raiders team flush with cap space, however, paying a premium for protection doesn't seem so outlandish. Linderbaum will fit perfectly with new coach Clint Kubiak's zone runs, and reliability at pivot could pay off in a big way for expected number 1 pick Fernando Mendoza's development. The Raiders' free agency strategy at times resembled mashing all the buttons on a controller at once, but this addition could help establish the foundation needed for the silver and black to get off the ground floor for once. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour. Colts trade wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. for a late-round pick swap. Steelers grade C+, Colts grade B-. For some teams, free agency can be a mechanism by which teams change their identities. For the Steelers, however, it seems to be a way in which the team can lean into its long-running vision for itself. Pittman, who averaged a meager 9.9 yards per catch last season and posted the fewest receiving yards since his rookie year, can still feast on in-breaking routes as a short to intermediate threat. But don't expect him to revolutionize the outlook for a receiving core that still might be a little stale after his addition. This will be easier to stomach if the Steelers keep at that mission, but it still feels a bit risky to hand the 28-year-old a 3-year, $59 million extension. The Colts' salary dump might not move the needle much, but Indianapolis managed to navigate keeping Pittman in the fold until it had worked out the extension with Pierce. Dolphins add QB Malik Willis on 3-year, $67.5 million deal. Grade A-. Ahead of this week, there was plenty of hand-wringing about the kind of offer that Willis might field after starting just 3 games in the last 2 years as Jordan Love's backup on the Green Bay Packers. The actual bottom line, however, is entirely reasonable for the Dolphins. Miami gets to pivot from Tua Tagovailoa era into an outlook with a decidedly higher upside, as Willis and Devon Achane might be one of the NFL's most explosive backfield tandems. New general manager John Eric Sullivan and coach Jeff Haley know Willis's capabilities thanks to their shared time in Green Bay, and with the alternative being forging ahead with Quinn Ewers, the Dolphins at least went with the more promising choice among unproven passers. The financial commitment isn't daunting either, as the cap space allotted to Willis might simply have gone to waste elsewhere as part of a significant rebuild. Panthers add defensive end and linebacker Jalen Phillips on 4-year, $120 million deal. Grade B. Whether it's via the draft or the open market, upgrading a pass rush will come with a hefty price tag. Carolina tried to take the former route last year with second-day picks Nick Scourton and Princely Umanmielen, but that just led the team to a point of impatience. Enter Phillips, who isn't in the league's first tier of edge threats, but already can be a fearsome presence. Now, for the first time since the Panthers traded Brian Burns to the New York Giants, defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero has a legitimate force off the edge capable of creating havoc. Chiefs add running back Kenneth Walker III on 3-year, $43.05 million deal. Grade B-. Seems only natural that Kansas City would try to solve its explosiveness problem in the ground game by securing a running back who had more than 3 times as many 20-plus yard runs, 10, as the team's entire offense engineered last season, 3. With Eric Bieniemy back as offensive coordinator and Walker stepping in, it seems like a good bet that the Chiefs make a large leap with their rushing attack. But the cost here was fairly exorbitant for a team that was saddled with cap problems and now might need to get creative to find solutions for a tattered secondary. Kansas City's insistence on rediscovering its big play roots feels a bit misplaced amid wider roster problems, but at least there's reason to believe Walker's arrival could expedite an overall offensive resurgence, even if the resource allocation is questionable at best. Colts re-sign wide receiver Alec Pierce to 4-year, $116 million deal. Colts grade B-. Is it an overpay? Almost certainly. It's difficult to look at a $29 million average annual value, not to mention the $84 million guaranteed, and conclude otherwise for a player who still relies so heavily on his wins in the vertical game to sustain himself. But General Manager Chris Ballard and Coach Shane Steichen are entering a make-or-break campaign, and they couldn't afford to flinch as they tried to reassemble the pieces that made them successful in the first half of last season. Indianapolis might not have managed this in an ideal fashion, but at least the team avoided the very real threat of losing Pierce in a booming receiver market. Packers trade defensive end Rashawn Gary to Cowboys. Cowboys grade C, Packers grade A. So much for Jerry Jones' rumination that the Cowboys could be uncharacteristically aggressive in free agency this year. This feels less like a splash and more like a belly flop for Dallas's defense. Gary's 7.5 sacks last season belie his limited effectiveness as a pass rusher, with a pressure rate that has continued to plunge yearly after falling to 12.1% last year. He neither properly capitalized on Micah Parsons' arrival nor stepped up when the all-pro edge rusher was lost for the season to a torn ACL. Gary can stop the run and register some cleanup sacks, but that hardly feels like an efficient use of the $19.5 million cap hit. Meanwhile, Green Bay somehow extracts a 4th-round pick, albeit in 2027, for a player who otherwise might have just been cut loose. Dolphins trade S. Minkah Fitzpatrick to Jets. Jets grade B, Dolphins grade incomplete. Despite entering March 9th with a good deal of spending space, Gang Green mostly scrounged through the bargain bin in the early stages of free agency. Their one splurge might have come in the form of acquiring Fitzpatrick, whom they assigned to a 3-year, $40 million extension, essentially the going rate for a nice but not elite safety. The 5-time Pro Bowler is hardly at his playmaking peak anymore, but he's a respected leader who can get the back end of the Jets' defense in order. That's nothing to sneeze at for Aaron Glenn and Darren Mugi, who don't have much to count on beyond their floor-raising pickups in free agency. New general manager John Eric Sullivan, meanwhile, gets a reprieve for cleaning up the missteps of his predecessor. The next headline on page 3 of the sports section reads, UConn women make it a 6-peat in the Big East, by Heather Burns. Uncasville, Connecticut. The number 1 ranked UConn women's basketball team won its 6th consecutive Big East tournament in a dominant fashion, 90-51 over Villanova on March 9th at the Mohegan Sun Arena. The number 1 seeded Huskies, who have 23 Big East tournament titles overall, have won 70 straight Big East games. UConn, 34-0, is riding a 50-game winning streak overall, going back to last season. UConn won its 12th women's national championships in 2024-25 season and will likely be the number 1 overall seed in selection on Selection Sunday. Quote, "We didn't leave Tampa with the national championship last season, saying we are going to be undefeated this year," UConn coach Gino Auriemma said. "It's been an incredible run for us. These players play the best they can every night, and that's all you can ask, their best effort," end quote. Sarah Strong, named the Big East Tournament Most Outstanding Player, had an impressive statistics line with 18 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal and a block. Asked how she's grown as a player, Strong says she tries to do it all. Quote, "I do a good job of being a good teammate on the court, and whatever needs to be done, I always have my teammates back," Strong said. Senior Azzi Fudd, who was named to the all-tournament team, led all UConn scorers with 19 points, including 8 in the third quarter. Junior KK Arnold, also on the all-tournament team, added 10 points and 7 assists. Big East Freshman of the Year Blanca Quinones had 13 points and 3 steals. "We scored a lot of points in this tournament, but defense was what drove us in this tournament," Oriana said. Jasmine Basco had 14 points and 5 rebounds for Villanova, 25 and 6, which will likely get an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. The next headline in today's USA Today sports section reads, "Buzzer Beater, SGA drops MVP race Mike," by Lorenzo Reyes. The race for NBA most valuable player is pretty much a wrap. With his 35-point, 15-assist, 9-rebound masterclass on March 9th against the Denver Nuggets, the Oklahoma City Thunder's reigning MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander made it all but a certainty that he would be crowned with the award once more. That it came on the night when he tied Wilt Chamberlain's NBA record for consecutive games, 126, with at least 20 points, only bolsters his late-season argument. And that he won the game with a silky step-back three with just 2.7 seconds left added yet another MVP moment to his highlight reel, something voters tend to weigh with significance. Quote, "Tremendous poise, confidence, he doesn't change his mindset regardless of the circumstance," Thunder coach Mark Daigneault said after the 129-126 Thunder victory. "He doesn't break a sweat." If there's a paradigm of consistency in the NBA, it's Gilgeous-Alexander. He appears to glide across the floor, unbothered, to get to his spots. He seems to know exactly what defenses will try to do against him. And as the Thunder have confronted injuries all season long, they rank second in the NBA in games missed and were without 3 starters, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, and Isaiah Hartenstein, against the Nuggets. It's Gilgeous-Alexander who's carrying this team to greatness. Despite the time missed because of injury, the Thunder are 51-15, which is the best record in the NBA. Just to show how quickly things change, a little more than 2 weeks ago, after carrying the Pistons to a massive win over the Knicks at Madison Square Garden, Cade Cunningham had seized momentum on the national stage. In fact, I wrote then that Cunningham should be the MVP favorite and would be deserving of the award if the season ended that day. The season, of course, didn't, and Detroit has sputtered since that game, losing 5 of its subsequent 9 games. The Pistons are currently on a 4-game losing streak, and Cunningham's play has been slightly uneven in recent weeks. Realistically, if Cunningham had any edge over Gilgeous-Alexander at the time of that Knicks game, February 20th, it was that SGA was at the time sidelined with an abdominal strain. But in the 5 games Gilgeous-Alexander has played since returning from that injury that forced him to miss 9 games, he's averaging 30.8 points, 8.4 assists, 4.8 rebounds, and 1.8 steals per game. By late Monday night, just minutes after Gilgeous-Alexander's game-winning 3, FanDuel and DraftKings each lowered their futures odds for Gilgeous-Alexander winning MVP to -800. That's a fairly pedestrian figure, especially since he was -275 and -260 in those books, respectively, just 1 week ago. Realistically, the only thing that can get in SGA's way is his health. He has played 54 of a possible 66 games for the Thunder, which means he can miss no more than 5 through Oklahoma City's final 16 contests to remain eligible for the postseason awards. Quote, "I think what he has already done, he's an all-time great," Thunder center Jalen Williams told reporters after the game. "He's just adding onto it. I think every game, every situation, he just continues to impress. When you're the best in the world, it's hard to continue to impress. He's doing it night in, night out." Next headline in the sports section reads, World Baseball Classic, Puerto Rico Showcases Heritage by Gabe Lux. The best story of this World Baseball Classic is not the baseball overdogs, the absurdly talented Team USA or Dominican Republic squads that mix next-level baseball talent with bloodless execution. Nor is it, at least not yet, Shohei Ohtani, who blasted a pair of home runs as Japan quietly prevailed in its pool in Tokyo. And never mind the goofy upstarts from countries we weren't sure played baseball, though Italy may make its biggest WBC mark yet. No, the most remarkable group, once again, hails from an island of 3.2 million, a fraction of the population in the Dominican or Cuba, and a minuscule slice of humanity relative to the global superpowers that count their citizens in the hundreds of millions. For the sixth time in as many iterations of the World Baseball Classic, Puerto Rico is on to the quarterfinals. That's a claim the Dominicans can't make, having once again failed to escape group play. And it may seem ho-hum, given the island of Clemente and Beltran and many Molinas established its hardball bona fides several generations ago. Yet the baseball-mad territory has been dealt setback after setback going on decades, be it subjugation to the Major League Baseball draft, to a series of hurricanes pounding the island, to now this strange situation involving insurance coverage and the terrible misfortune that it just so happened to befall nearly a dozen Puerto Rican players, thinning a strong yet already compromised talent pool. Certainly, you've heard about the holy trinity of Puerto Rican shortstops. That Francis Lindor was denied insurance, he'd end up fracturing his hamate bone anyway. And the actuaries wouldn't come near Carlos Correa's medical charts, and Javi Baez was sidelined for a years ago marijuana violation that wouldn't have cost him any games in the Major League Baseball. But the insurance monster wouldn't stop until ace Jose Barrios was knocked out, along with useful reliever Alexis Diaz, and perhaps most important, switch-hitting catcher Victor Caratini. All this coming on an island that hasn't been the same after it was ravaged for 8 days in 2017 by Hurricane Maria, dealing long-term setbacks to its infrastructure while its leaders tossed paper towels at the problem. It's been nearly a decade since Maria. Perhaps you tuned into the Super Bowl halftime show and appreciated the Puerto Rican struggle. If not, Puerto Rico manager Yadier Molina can fill you in on the baseball end of that equation. Quote, "Here in Puerto Rico, there are a lot of parks that haven't been repaired since Maria," says Molina, the former St. Louis Cardinals great and youngest of the Molina catcher troika, before the team's colossal pool play showdown against Cuba. We need to give a little TLC to the sport. Everyone talks about education and health, but we need to talk about sports also. We need to help it, and we need to move it forward. Yet, help or no help, the Puerto Ricans always seem to move it forward. Minus Caratini, the Boricua once again summoned 39-year-old Martin Maldonado to put on the gear and squat behind the plate. One of the Major League's most respected backstops, Maldonado might have played his final MLB game, and besides, he was just a 204 career hitter anyway. But you don't last 15 years in the major leagues without something special. And so when Puerto Rico trailed by a run, bottom of the ninth, against Panama in a March 7th game that could have jeopardized its hopes, Maldonado simply rolled an opposite field single to right field that keyed the tying rally. An inning later, Darryl Hernaiz hit a walk-off home run that generated roars in San Juan that probably endured through the team's off day. Against Cuba, it was Maldonado's spot that came up in a scoreless game, second inning, bases loaded. And the 204 hitter smoked a first-pitch slider into the left field corner, 3 runs scored. Maldonado handled the 5-pitcher relay with aplomb. Puerto Rico held Cuba to 2 hits. The 4-1 victory ensured their spot in the quarterfinals. Logic would suggest that this is where the Boricua get in over their heads, yet history suggests otherwise. Puerto Rico advanced to the championship game in both 2013 and 2017, as many WBC final appearances as Team USA, and won more than the Dominicans. Sure, the Puerto Ricans haven't yet won it all, but they've nonetheless punched above their weight significantly. It's easy to laugh off the immaculate vibes that always surround the squad. Team Rubio and all that, and court jester Kike Hernandez, another injury casualty this time around, keeping it all loose. Yet the 20,000 fans who jam Estadio Hiram Bitorn and the many thousands more watching elsewhere create an expectation for the squad. Quote, "We as Puerto Ricans take that very serious," veteran catcher Christian Vázquez said before the Cuba matchup. "We see there's a lot of children looking up to us, and they're going to step into our shoes when there's another classic, and we're going to have to keep on being a role model. So it has weight, and we do take that very seriously. Consider the tradition upheld, even if the odds seem to get longer every single time." Moving on to the life section, the headline on the front page reads, "Best Picture Race is Worthy One," under the banner of 98th Academy Awards News and Views, by Brian Truitt. It's the final countdown. For a lot of folks, figuring out what will be named Best Picture on March 15th at the 98th Academy Awards, ABC and Hulu, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, is a relatively recent conundrum. Yet while they've only been thinking about it since late January, film critics like yours truly have been thinking about this slate of 10 nominated films for much of the last year. That's a lot of hemming and hawing, a lot of second and triple guessing, and a bevy of rewatches to gauge the worthiness of being part of a historically significant canon. Thankfully, they're all at least pretty good. No Bohemian Rhapsody lurking among them to worry about possibly winning. So what's the best of the best among this year's Oscar crop? Here are my top 5. Number 1, Sinners. The Life of Chuck might have been the best movie of 2025, but Sinners was a close second. So it makes the top of my ballot. Ryan Coogler's vampire-filled musical period epic won Best Ensemble at the Actor Awards, making the Oscar race downright scintillating in the last weeks. Michael B. Jordan delivers a sensational dual performance as twin gangsters staving off bloodsuckers at their juke joint's door. It's gory and bizarre, but rousing and beautiful. And Sinners, which would be just the second horror movie in almost a century of Oscar history to win Best Picture, is the one film on this list that really feels like it'll influence a generation of filmmakers. And there's a picture of Michael B. Jordan playing gangster twins on this page. Number 2, Hamnet. At the Oscars, never count out any movie that can totally wreck a viewer emotionally. See Coda, Moonlight. Jessie Buckley, a runaway choice for Best Actress, helps put an audience through the ringer with her heartbreaking portrayal as Shakespeare's wife dealing with the tragic death of their son. Add in Paul Mescal's solid turn as an absent barred dad who deals with loss in his own way, plus a cathartic final act, and director Chloe Zhao's gut-wrenching historical drama has a good chance of placing high on a lot of Oscar voters' lists. Number 3, Frankenstein. While Guillermo del Toro has won the category before with The Shape of Water, this thoughtful adaptation of Mary Shelley's masterwork is his greatest hit. The Frankenstein mythos has been done and redone for almost as long as Hollywood has been around, but Del Toro creates an all-around technical achievement. Cinematography, costumes, production design, oh my. As his egotistical science, Oscar Isaac crafts a monster. Jacob Elordi's sensational performance as the creature is just the cherry on top of a familiar tale told exquisitely. Number 4, Sentimental Value. Joachim Trier's wry and moving Norwegian drama smacks of the days of Terms of Endearment and Ordinary People, with a well-acted family story where there needs to be some serious hugging it out so a dysfunctional family can come together. Stellan Skarsgård plays an aging filmmaker whose selfish past led to an estrangement from his daughters, and who wants to make a movie inspired by their mom. Renate Reinsve is the determined stage actress who's not having it, while Inga Ibsdottir Lilias soars as the sibling trying to mend severely broken fences. Number 5, One Battle After Another. People who loved Paul Thomas Anderson's politically charged action dramedy adore it, which has given it a lot of momentum throughout award season. And it's definitely got the resume, with top prizes from British Academy Film Awards, Golden Globes, plus the Producers and Directors Guild to go all the way. Leonardo DiCaprio is back in Oscar-ready form as a stoner former revolutionary who was left by his spirited love, Teyana Taylor, and struggles to save his daughter, fabulous newcomer Chase Infinity, from a dastardly nemesis, Sean Penn. It's an inspired film built to meet an angry moment. A section on the front page of this Life section, or an article, or a banner, reads, "They Said What?" And this includes the star's best quotes, and today it comes from Stephen Colbert. "The revolution will not be televised. It was going to be televised, but then Paramount bought it. Evidently, the revolution was losing like $40 million a year. It had to go." Stephen Colbert said this at the Writers Guild Awards ceremony in New York on March 8th. Colbert, whose The Late Show was canceled at Paramount Skydance-owned CBS last year, accepted the honorary Walter Bernstein Award, which recognizes individuals who have confronted social injustice in the face of adversity, per the Guild. In his speech, Colbert praised his writing staff and reflected, "I have loved our time together, which hasn't been as much time as I would like." Some birthdays today: journalist Sam Donaldson turns 92, guitarist Harvey Mandel, Canned Heat, turns 81, Bobby McFerrin turns 76, film director Jerry Zucker, 76, music producer Jimmy Iovine, 73, composer-conductor David Newman is 72, director-actor Peter Berg is 62, singer-actor Lisa Loeb is 58, actress-producer Terrence Howard is 57, actor Johnny Knoxville, 55, guitarist Benji Madden and singer Joel Madden, Good Charlotte, is 47, singer-actress LaToya Luckett, Destiny's Child, is 45, actor-director Thora Birch is 44. You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for Wednesday, March 11th, 2026. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been David Frothingham.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 50 of Ron Chernow by his book about Mark Twain. Following that, at 3 o'clock is Healthy Living, and at 4 o'clock a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print